Hey Emma,
Yes, Madelyn.
what do you call your friendly neighborhood web-slinging bovine?
I don't know. What do you call him?
Spider-Moo! Hello, and welcome to Talk This.
It's dangerous to podcast alone.
I thought that joke was utterly hilarious.
Oh, ha, 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 ha. Except it's not spelled like moo, though.
So,
Spider M-U-E.
it's all about the phonetics on Talk This.
Okay, sure.
As much as I refer to our readers on the podcast on like a weekly basis, they are our listeners. And so...
Our viewers?
Oh, it is viewers more often than readers, isn't it?
Yeah, readers would be particularly weird.
Yeah, that would jump out. Our viewers. Oops. Anyway, viewers, listeners, readers, thank you for tuning in to Talk This. I'm one of your hosts, Madelyn.
I'm your other host, Emma.
And we've got an awesome lineup for you this February week, I think.
Yeah.
Of some open world of various sorts, kind of fun.
Yeah.
So our old game this week is Shenmue, which that's how you pronounce it. We looked it up.
Yep.
There were some really sassy commenters on the thread, too.
Yeah. I was like, well, sorry, not everyone can read katakana and knows how to pronounce it. But
They're
okay.
Like, there's like, it says it in the katakana underneath. You would know.
Yeah.
And also, Marvel's Spider-Man,
Mm-hmm.
which you've probably heard of.
Yes.
If not the game, at least Spider-Man.
At least one of the Spider-Men.
Is that the correct grammar for it, to refer to them as Spider-Men?
As opposed to spider people, I guess.
Spider people, Spider-Mans,
Spider people.
Spider folk,
Spider folk. That's good.
Spider gang.
Spider gang.
What do you call it? Like,
what do you call a group of spiders?
That's literally what I was about to say. But then I was like, I don't really think spiders live in groups.
But it's still like a thing.
Don't the females eat the males? A lot of the time. Is there such a... Well, what do you call a group of spiders? Well, you call an exterminator...
A cluster or a clutter of spiders.
A clutter of spiders. So, a spider... Cluttermen.
Cluttermen.
That's real.
That's the official thing laid down by Marvel.
You liked my joke? You didn't even hear my joke. I actually had a good joke.
Oh, sorry. What was it?
It was, you said... The listeners heard this, but I'm just repeating it for you. You said, what do you call a group of spiders? And at first I was like, oh, I just said that. But then I realized there was a joke. I said, you call an exterminator.
Ha 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 ha.
Thanks.
Ho 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 ho.
This is so mean. So let's close this chapter of yet another piece of pain that I'll just file away somewhere. And talk about Shenmue.
Yeah.
So, Shenmue is a 1999 open world, like, life simulator brawler. Which, like, that's a weird combo to say.
Is it really open world? Isn't there just, like, a town that you're in?
Okay, open town, sure. I read a lot about how it really pioneered open worlds, and that was something I was going to talk about. So, don't tell me it's not open world, or I'll have nothing to say.
Okay.
Open town. Fine.
Yeah. I guess it's an open world. I don't know. I guess it's just like you get used to it being so... It's referring to things that are so big these days that, like... I guess, like, if I came out today, I'd be like, it's a small open world.
You know? Like, as you said, it's an open town.
Yeah.
But in the context of its 1999 release, it's an impressively open world.
Yeah.
It was developed by Sega, specifically by Yu Suzuki, who was a real hotshot at Sega around that time, I think. Mm-hmm. For the Dreamcast, which is just a real throwback.
So that was their console, right?
I know. Yeah, it's the Sega Dreamcast. But it's funny to think about a time, in our lifetimes even, when there was another company making gaming consoles. Really feels like a 3-horse game, plus the computer. And it's just, like, it's weird to think about, you know, potentially, like, Amazon or Google or someone jumping into the gaming console market at this point, you know?
Well, I feel like the first Xbox didn't come out. Now I'm curious.
Well, Shenmue was ported to the Xbox in 2002.
The original Xbox came out in 2001. So, back then, the 3 was... Well, Sega was probably dying at that point in terms of being a console maker. But back then, it was just Nintendo, Sega, and PlayStation.
Fair. Still, though, given that there haven't really been any notable entries into the console game in the past, say, 15 to 20 years, it's still a little bit crazy to think about. Anyway, Shenmue, released in 1999 for the Dreamcast by a guy who had been an arcade game developer and, like, decided that he wanted to make a longer game. Again, a weird thing to think about. Although I guess today the synonymous thing would be, like, I'm an app developer. I'm, like, a gaming app developer, and I want to make a game, like a long-form game. Which, you know, it's weird. Because those gaming app things, I feel like, that are successful are often not housed in the same companies as people that make long games. Just interesting how the industry has changed. But it's a game that's about teenage martial artists, which I just feel like that's always a good premise for a game. Teenage martial artist.
I mean, yeah.
As a starting point. Oh man, my notes corrected it to Roy, but it's Ryu. Hazuki, who, like, travels around 1980s China and Japan in the quest to find his father's killer. So the game starts out with, like, you come home to your family dojo, which, again, a family dojo. What a concept for a game. Where your father, Iwao, is that how I say it? Iwao?
Yeah. Iwao.
Cool.
Something like that.
As Wikipedia describes it, a Chinese man, Lan Di, who's, like, threatening your father if he doesn't give him this, like, dragon mirror. And your father eventually tells him that the dragon mirror is buried beneath the cherry blossom tree in your yard, and he digs it up, and he takes it, and he kills your father anyway.
Yeah. Well, apparently, Wow killed somebody in China.
Right. So it's a perpetuating cycle, affecting teenage martial artists everywhere.
Yes.
So the dangers of being a teenage martial artist is that you have a 1 in 3 chance of this happening to you.
Yes, it's true.
Spread the word.
Be warned.
But basically now, again, can't emphasize this enough, as a teenage martial artist, you are obligated to avenge your father's death. So, in the first game, you travel around Japan, sort of fighting this gang that's associated with Lan Di, and then at the end of that game, you decide that you find out that Lan Di is in Hong Kong, and so you travel to Hong Kong, where in the second game, released in 2001, you, like, continue, like, fighting gangs and stuff, I think, in Hong Kong, but you meet a lady martial artist, well, no, she's not a martial artist, that's a lie. I was just excited about a teenage girl martial artist, but she's, like, magical somehow, and is connected to this dragon mirror and phoenix mirror.
And then there's Shenmue 3, which has not come out yet, but is in development.
Supposedly coming August 2019.
Yes. They released new screenshots yesterday, and there's a extensive trailer coming at the Magic 2019 press conference show.
Like Magic the Gathering?
No, it stands for something.
Okay.
It's like all caps. I don't know what it stands for. I haven't heard of it before. But yeah. So Shenmue, despite it was a cult hit, meaning that it was a cult hit, not a commercial success.
And, you know, to be fair, Shenmue sold pretty well. It's like the 4th best-selling game on Dreamcast, sold
Yes.
over 1 million copies, which is no small feat, especially at 1999. But it was rumored and was the most expensive video game ever made at that time.
Yeah.
The rumors at the time were that it cost $70 million to make.
Probably, but it's between 47 and 70.
Right.
And some of that goes into like setting the framework for future games and a little bit into Shenmue 2. So it didn't all go into the first game, but it's still a pretty significant chunk of change for 1999 video games.
What did video games cost then?
That, I don't know.
Yeah.
I could not tell you.
I just feel like the $60 price point has been so standard for so long, but I'm sure it was not $60 in 2000.
I'm sure that the big budget ones cost more nowadays. It's probably less expensive now to make like a little small game because there's so many like free engines now. Mm-hmm. But in terms of making like, your big performance capture type stuff, I'm sure it's more expensive now. In fact, I was like a little bit like they did a Kickstarter for Shenmue 3 actually, with a target of $2 million that ended up raising $6 million. But even that, I was like, how are you gonna make a game on $6 million?
I'm sure the Kickstarter was just a stunt to attract investors.
Yeah.
And it worked because it's the fastest and highest funded video game project in Kickstarter history.
Yeah.
So it worked. I can't imagine that after seeing that, serious real investors did not also come on board.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure. It was just a little funny. It's like, yeah, that's pretty impressive, but like considering your first game cost $47 million in 1999,
Well, they really laid the groundwork, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, there you go. They looked into the future to make it for the PlayStation 4.
Yeah. So, Shenmue got what seemed, from what I was reading, to be really, really glowingly positive, for the most part, reviews when it came out. Everyone was saying it was incredibly innovative. It was just like a different way to play games. The graphics were stunning. The attention to detail was stunning. That kind of thing. And then in the sort of retrospective reviews, people are like, this game is boring. Which was interesting to me to see sort of how quickly things change. Because, this game in a lot of ways, so I was having a hard time when I was reading the short summary. I was like, what happens in this game?
Yeah.
There did not seem to be enough meat to it. Like, when I read the, very short summary of, teenage martial artist tries to avenge father's death, I was expecting a whole lot more avenging the father's death.
Yeah. There are fighting sequences that are similar to the Virtua Fighter series, so it's like, which the creator of this also made, hence probably why it was similar. But it also has a world on a schedule, so you can do things around town, but you have to do it at the time, so you have to walk back home and go to bed, and you have a part-time job, and you can go to the arcade and win,
play Sega games,
and yeah. You can throw darts or play other Sega games. You can, people have their routines in accordance to the clock, which isn't super revolutionary nowadays, but was really interesting at the time. It's called a persistent world, in that it doesn't, people don't just stand there. It keeps going no matter what, right?
Yeah. And it got so much praise at the time for its attention to detail. And, of course, that's impossible to hold up, right? Graphics and attention to detail, just if they're not stylized in some way, it's very difficult for that to hold up. Of course, it's going to become boring. But a lot of the retrospective reviews were just this game is disrespectful of its players' time. It's so... It's just, the pacing is so slow, and it relies on you to make your own fun so much, and there's just, not that much that's fun. Which I thought was interesting. Because, especially now, so if we think of this as kind of a very proto-open world kind of thing, which I think is fair, right? There's this world that sort of keeps rolling along, you get to choose what to do. it doesn't, there's just not that much, I mean, I don't know, obviously I haven't played it, but like, it doesn't seem that much that would make you want to keep playing it. Now that said, I really like stuff like, I really like Stardew Valley, right? I really like Persona, and a lot of these things that are happening in this game seem very similar to those types of games. Like, you're making your money, you're going about your daily routine. And those, you know, games also, sort of, to very different degrees, have some combat elements. But this is a hard game to sound like it's going to be interesting.
You mentioned all these retrospectives that are negative, and yet also both games end up on a lot of, like, greatest video games of all time.
Yeah, that's very true. It always interests me how people put those together, right?
Yeah.
Because sort of what's your criteria?
Yeah.
If your criteria is what's the most fun, most beautiful, like, objectively the best video game of all time, you'd have to think, like, 20 of the slots would have to go to games that have been released in the past, like, 3 years. Right?
Sure.
I mean, just in terms of games that have the most for you to do, that are the best created, that, you know?
I think that you can appreciate structures in older games that are better overall than stuff that's nowadays. Like, maybe it runs smoother, but, like, the experience is more satisfying still in these older games.
That's fair. I just think, just with the sheer volume of games that are all so different that come out now that we like, almost anyone can make a game, right?
Yeah.
It's hard to imagine even games, like when I saw that Shenmue was on these lists, again, have not played it. I saw some reviews that were like, it's nice, it makes you slow down, it makes you really appreciate the little things in the game, and it's a game that's not about fighting, which I can appreciate that. I don't want people to think I'm, like, poo-pooing that kind of storytelling. I like my action games, but I can appreciate games that are quieter and subtler. But it's hard to imagine this game is really one of the top 25 best games of all time compared to things that have come out in the past 20 years.
Well, I've been planning to play these because they released, like, a PS4 remaster port of the 2, and I'm interested in playing 3. I just haven't gotten around to it yet. Probably see if I can get it in the next couple of months. But, like, putting aside, like, quality, whatever, or funness, it's pretty much impossible to deny, like, the influence, I guess, that the game has on games that follow it. I mean, not just in terms of, like, open world, but in terms of, like, even, like, quick time events, which is funny to think about, like, the pioneering of quick time events.
What a mistake they made.
No, quick time events, if I remember correctly, from when I remember learning about them, they were the first way that they tried to make players feel invested in, like, the cool moments, because gameplay wasn't to the point where you could have cool moments in the gameplay, right?
Right.
Like, nowadays you can kind of mesh the gameplay into, like, the cool moves or whatever, right? But back then it was all cutscenes, and they're like, well, we don't want just players to watch the cutscenes, we want to make them feel like they're doing cool things. So they added these QuickTime events so that you feel like you are still doing it, even when it's mostly a cutscene.
Listeners who are not viewers could not see that Emma did her little cool moves. It was a little fun, cool head bobble. So you really missed out, those of you who are not in the studio today. But no, I just mean, like, QuickTime events suck. Like, I get.
I don't think they always suck. I think they're overused sometimes.
I know.
I don't think they always suck.
I just mean with great power comes great responsibility, which is a really appropriate quote to use in this episode, I guess.
It's true, it is.
But they gave people, by pioneering this tool, they gave people a dangerous weapon that could be overused. But yeah, no, I absolutely agree. I'm not saying in terms of impact. If you're doing a best games of all time and you're judging based on impact, this does seem like a valid thing to consider including.
Yeah.
It's just always interesting when those...
It's struck enough of a chord that it was the fastest Kickstarter to get to 2 million, and it ended up with 6 million for Shenmue 3. Like, 2001 to... I don't remember when they did the Kickstarter.
Yeah.
2016, 2015?
Mm-hmm.
But more than 10 years later.
Well, they had a bunch of kind of failed stuff that happened in the meantime. So there was going to be a massively multiplayer role-playing game online. I said that in a weird order, because I was, like, trying to shorten it by dropping online, but then I felt like online was important. So, a Morpig, if you will, that was announced in 2004, but then they didn't actually do it. And then there was a social game, which it didn't seem that social, it just seemed like it was a mobile game, but whatever, called Shenmue City, which sounds a little silly to me, but whatever, that ran for like a year from 2010 to 2011.
Sega has been, like they've gone through a recent revival, but they went through some difficulties, both like stopping console generation and then some difficulties in terms of a developer, and it's really only been recently with like the resurgence of the Yakuza series that they've done anything. And in fact, Shenmue 3 isn't even like they're taking the license from Sega, the original creator, and is working with his own company to develop it as opposed to at Sega.
This character, though, probably the place that most people know this character, I would bet, is from the Sonic and Sega racing games. Right? That's gotta be where people know it. Because there's like some kind of character that has like a motorcycle in the second one, so Ryu rides this motorcycle on these Sonic racing games.
It's like the equivalent of Smash, right?
That's what I was about to say. I was
when
like,
you're in Smash, you're like, who are all these people? I don't know. But they're fun to play as.
Well, like, big shout out to Shenmue for pioneering all this good stuff, even though neither of us really enjoy open world games very much, and neither of us, well, at least me, don't really like QuickTime events very much.
Yeah. You should probably try it, though. It sounds kind of like Stardew Valley.
I know, but I'm worried...
Like, I feel like the time system would frustrate me, because that's what frustrated me in Stardew Valley, but it might be fun for you after you finish, like, a couple more games.
Are you saying that I like boring things?
Yes.
Good, because you're correct.
Speaking of open world games set in one sort of city.
With QuickTime events? Marvel Spider-Man!
So Spider-Man.
We literally started this here at Talk This NYC HQ like an hour ago. We started the game.
They actually bought their PlayStation 4 with a copy of Spider-Man.
It's true. But, as I said earlier, I'm going to try to say this like 20 times in the episode, so let's keep counting. With great power comes great responsibility. And so, as I purchased this PS4 with Spider-Man, Clickbait Boyfriend and I agreed. Not, like, formally. We didn't, like, shake hands on it or anything. We were like, we're both playing, like, half a dozen games each, minimum. So we can't start Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And he was especially like, I can't start Spider-Man. I have to finish the Kingdom Hearts games. Like, I can't start it. But now, unfortunately, we've drawn it from the podcast hat. And I don't know. Will he have to quit his job? Maybe.
Probably.
Yeah.
It's fine.
I had made him start it, to be fair, because I was like, I am playing a dozen games. I can't do this.
Yeah.
So I
almost
watched.
Done with Persona, though. You're getting there.
I know, but when am I gonna play Persona, Emma? I have to play Kingdom Hearts.
Once you finish Kingdom Hearts.
I know. Then I'll add Shenmue. It's gonna be hard. It's really hard. With great power comes great responsibility, people. When you have 3 consoles plus a computer, not even really a gaming computer, just, you've got great power and great responsibility.
So, Insomniac's Marvel's Spider-Man, to be more specific, came out in September of this year, I think.
Yep.
Or last year, I guess, because
2018.
September of 2018. This school year, if you think like me, I guess. And was pretty dang successful and good.
Yeah, critically adored, sold super well.
Nobody's getting Spider-Man fatigue. which is honestly kind of amazing.
Everybody loves Spider-Man.
I mean, Spider-Man's great.
Spider-Man is an ideal superhero in many ways.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, the noticeable Spider-Man we have now are all very different versions of Spider-Man. So we have Tom Holland as traditional teenage Spider-Man. We have whoever played him in Into the Spider-Verse as a grown-up, kind of sad, pizza-loving Spider-Man.
Well, and Miles Morales.
Sure, okay, Peter Parker. There we go. Whatever.
Okay, you're cool.
Different versions of Peter Parker Spider-Man.
Gotcha.
Okay. And then we have Yuri Lowenthal's Spider-Man in this, who is a college student?
No,
right?
he's 23.
Graduate?
He's like a research assistant somewhere.
Yeah.
We haven't gone to work yet here.
Okay, yeah, he's a research assistant Spider-Man. Sort of grown up. Having some relationship issues.
Do we define 23 as grown up?
In comparison to other Spider-Men we might be used to.
Yeah. And poor Peter Parker is having every New Yorker's problem of he has some relationship issues. He's having trouble balancing his side hustle and his pay-the-bills job.
Yeah.
He has to remind himself to pay the rent.
Yeah.
He's got stuff all over his apartment. He can't keep it clean to save his life. Not that I would know. My apartment is sparkling clean.
Of course.
Speaking of my apartment, so the real big joy of Marvel's Spider-Man, not the gameplay or anything like that, because who cares, really? The real joy of Marvel's Spider-Man is that they have this, like, quite realistic rendering of New York City.
Mm-hmm.
And I was not the only one. Like, I was reading some reviews that were like, of course, like any New Yorker, the first thing I did was go look for my apartment.
Yeah.
And that is what we did. Looked like Boyfriend played through the Cuts opening, like, sequence, and he was getting calls from his boss being like, come to work. And he was like, no, let's go find the apartment.
Yeah.
And we were disappointed to find that our neighborhood has been somewhat condensed.
Uh-huh.
And that our street is not, even though it's, like, definitely in the location that our street is, because our street is, like, in a distinctive location.
Mm-hmm.
This makes it sound like I live on, like, Times Square or something. It's in a distinctive location.
She does. She lives on Times Square.
I literally live in the middle of Times Square on the red steps. In the TKTS booth.
Uh-huh.
That is my home. No, but we went down the street, has a different name, whatever, still a real street name, just in the wrong place. But then, our apartment building looks a lot nicer and does not have an Italian restaurant underneath.
No garlic bread scent.
It smelled so much like garlic bread this morning, so these people are missing out. Their apartments probably have, more than one room. But, and they probably get some natural light.
Yeah.
New York sure seems a lot sunnier than I remember it.
Yeah.
But it was cool to sort of still be in the neighborhood, except sort of here's my feeling about it. It's so close to accurate, but who is that for? It's not accurate enough for New Yorkers to really have fun with it.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like, we wanted to, like, take my walk to work, but, like, that street doesn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
And crushingly, okay, you'll appreciate this. So we went to Washington Square Park.
Yeah.
And it looks great. The sidewalks, honestly, the paths around the park look pretty much right. The arch looks right. Guess what's not there?
The dog park?
There's no dog park.
Why wouldn't they include the dog park?
I don't know.
Why else do you go to Washington Square Park?
I don't know.
I mean, I guess they didn't want to make dogs. I don't know. Like, a lot of dogs doing things, but still.
I get it, but no. I was crushed.
Are there any dogs, like, wandering about that you've seen?
I mean, we played in free play for like a total of 10 minutes. So
you've seen no puppy.
So
puppy
you know
patrol?
what? Haven't seen any dogs. That means there probably are no dogs because if they were gonna be realistic, Peter would have seen at least 20. Oh well. Yeah, crushingly disappointing. Also, there were no jazz combos playing, and it looks like a nice day, so there should be at least 5 jazz combos playing throughout the park.
Yeah.
So, have these people even been to New York? Or
questionable.
But that's the thing. It's like, it's hyper realistic, except that it's not.
Mm-hmm.
And I get that it needed to be kind of smaller, but it's like disappointing. Like, there are subway stations, and it's like, there's not a subway here. And people who don't live in New York aren't gonna know.
But it feels right. You know?
Sorta.
Like, if you live in New York, it doesn't. But if you visited New York, like, 4 times...
Yeah, that's
then
fair.
It feels right.
You're right. I know. I get it. I just thought I was just excited to see my building, okay?
And plus, like, they have to make a version of New York if they're making a Spider-Man game. They can't just be like, Spider-Man lives in New Yorker's town.
What?
And make a whole new city, right? They have to do something that's somewhat approximately based on New York.
Well, I can tell you right now that our mashup game city is going to be New Yorker's town.
Okay. Sounds good.
Perfect. Anyway, I've gotten off on a big tangent. Suffice it to say, if Insomniac does not eventually patch in the dog park, I will go to their offices with dogs for them to model.
You know what? That's fair. All the other people yelling at Insomniac about this or that have been sort of obnoxious, but protest for dogs. Go for it.
I will. I'll start a Twitter trend. Hashtag save Wasquapa.
Yeah. Like, Insomniac has, like, a good sense of humor about it, I guess, or it's just, like, good at ignoring it.
Probably
but
both.
Like, the first thing, I think this was pre-release, actually.
Oh, yeah.
Was Puddlegate.
I was so excited to talk about Puddlegate.
In which they showed a trailer with, like, a certain area at one point, and there were a lot of puddles. And then they showed a trailer again, a different trailer, but it had the same sort of scenario in it, or maybe it was like a gameplay snippet, I don't remember. But there were fewer puddles in it, which gamers, and I'm using that with like a capital G gamers there, took to be a graphical downgrade of the game, and a sign of laziness on the part of Insomniac.
Puddlegate.
Sometimes I'm just like, what? But then again, I don't understand, like, any sort of graphics stuff. I don't understand when my game is on 60 FPS. I don't notice. So, like, it just feels silly to be like, there's less puddles. That means this game is 0 out of 10.
I wonder if we just don't have nice enough televisions. I certainly
don't. I don't think so. I don't know. It's like, what? I guess I don't do, like, level 1 playthroughs or speedruns or anything where I understand that, like, frames matter a lot in those. But, like, when I'm just playing, like, the difference between... I've never been like, oh man, this game looks markedly smoother than this other game. Like, I can't tell when it's 60 or 30 FPS, you know?
Yeah.
As long as it's stable, then what does it matter? I don't know. That's just my opinion.
I agree. I'll talk to the other resident of Talk This NYC HQ has been really geeking out over these PS4 graphics, so I'll ask him how he might feel about Puddlegate and report back.
Mm-hmm. And the other thing that happened was actually DLC content, in which they were releasing a lot of different suits for Peter, a lot of Spidey suits. And every time they tweeted, people were like, "Where's the Spider-Man 2 suit, Insomniac?" It's like, what? Come on, guys, calm down. And of course, like, a little bit after that, they're like, here's the Spider-Man 2 suit. But it's not because people were yelling at them, because they probably had that planned, like, from the get-go.
Yeah.
Like, of course they're gonna include the Spider-Man 2 suit, or whatever. They know Spider-Man. They have people from Marvel there telling them what to do. I'm sure they've done their research on, like, best spider suits by popular choice, right? So, like, what's the... Like, I just don't understand people who constantly, like, reply to, like, all tweets from a developer with, like, do this. You know? It's the same thing with, like, Persona 5 for Switch. It's like, every Atlas tweet, there's, like, somebody down there who's like, bring Persona 5 to Switch, you cowards, or something less friendly than that. And it's just like, who do you think you're talking to right now? Like,
who do you think runs the Twitter?
I know. The CEO of Atlas runs the Twitter. The CEO of Insomniac is reading all your tweets. I don't think so.
It would be fun if it was the CEO's job to run the Twitter, though. I mean, like, what does the CEO do, really? Like, what does that job entail?
CEO stuff.
Right? They just, like, sit in the office. They're, like, too high up to do anything, right?
Yeah, pretty much. The people tell them what they're doing, you know?
Yeah. But see, they could run the Twitter while they're doing that. They could just scroll through Twitter and...
Running the Twitter is a lot of work if you're doing it right.
I know that. That's why it should be the CEO's job.
Okay. Sure.
The only thing that deserves that level of compensation is social media work.
Okay.
It's crushing.
We'll get a lot... all the CEOs will start running Twitters, and suddenly Twitter will be a much more, like, embarrassing, cringy place than it already is.
That's for the best. That's what Twitter should be.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would be remiss if I didn't shout out that in this version of Spider-Man, J. Jonah Jameson is not the editor-in-chief of the Daily Bugle. No. He hosts a podcast.
Yeah. He's really like sort of like Alex Jones in a lot of ways.
I know.
I've seen him compared to, which I think is funny. It's just like conspiracy theory mongerer.
I just had to shout out a fellow podcast host, podcast representation in games.
Fair and true.
Even if it does not make podcasting look super great.
It feels like a natural evolution for J. Jonah Jameson, though.
For real. No, for real. No one would keep him on board. He would step in some kind of PR scandal right away at the Bugle.
Yeah.
He has to have his own thing.
Yeah.
I also have to shout out, guess what the name of the lead writer of this game is?
Paquette.
Yeah! Did you actually know that?
Somebody Paquette. I did know that.
John Paquette.
John Paquette.
Do you think we're long-lost relatives?
Apparently Paquette is a pretty common name in, like, French Canada.
Yeah.
So, no, probably not.
Well, we have to be in some, like, way long-lost.
Hey, John Paquette. We're family. Hire me. I'm looking for a job, you know.
Nepotism. Nice. Anyway, getting back to the actual game. So it's a Spider-Man game. Like, you fight, there's some villain. Like, I don't really feel like I need to go. Like, you're Spider-Man.
There's like 5 villains, I think, in the Spider-Man
I know.
game.
But it's like, you're Spider-Man. I don't feel like I need to tell you the plot. You just go around doing Spider-Man stuff.
Yeah, that's the appeal. You swing around and do Spider-Man stuff.
However, I was reading some stuff. I mean, this game gets overwhelmingly positive reviews, and seemingly, even from these first half hour to an hour that we played. Although, man, we were going to play longer, but, like, this thing took forever to install.
It's big.
I'm not used to that. But I did see some feedback that was like, you know, this is an interesting moment for open world storytelling in this game. Because you could just sort of swing around New York and do whatever you want as Spider-Man, but eventually it's like, you go to the marker, you do the thing. You go to the marker, you do the thing. And just like you were saying, like, oh, QuickTime events let us do things that are a little more cinematic and cool. This game also utilizes that. And literally one of the developers, in one of the interviews I read, described it in almost that exact same way you just were. They were like, we couldn't do this with player-controlled action, some of these big action sequences. But it does feel a little bit at odds. You've got this, like, very free-roaming Spider-Man game, but then you have these, like, real scenario things.
Yeah.
Which is
you have to have, like, a balance, right? It kind of... I mean, I haven't played the narrative, so I don't know how, like, time-based it is, but it kind of makes sense for Spider-Man. Like, he does, like, you know, saves the world from, like, petty crime on the way to his big crime, you know? Feels sort of superhero-y, but, like, you either... Like, if you want, like, a real open world, then you have... It's a much different form of writing, right? Because you can't have a structure. So either you have, like, a really intense programming thing that, like, remembers everything you do and has the character evolve from there, or it's just, like, a bunch of disconnected vignettes where your character doesn't change at all, because if they change, then certain scenarios that you like find in the world wouldn't work anymore, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's hard to make like an open world game. Like even like stuff where you can do whatever, there is still that central storyline.
It's just especially interesting, I think, in this game because, you know, the real joy of this game is the swinging around, doing what you want. Like, getting to beat Spider-Man with this awesome swing mechanic.
Mm-hmm.
And then, obviously, it's a superhero game. He has to, like, fight a villain. But it's hard to... I don't know, I'm finding a hard time seeing how that sort of, like, weird time urgency that is sort of a necessity as a superhero, right? Like,
yeah,
if Doc Ock is destroying the Empire State Building, like, I can't, like, go swing over to Brooklyn for a while to grab a coffee and then go over there and not expect there to be consequences.
Well, what if you took the Shenmue style of persistent world and applied it to Spider-Man? And so there's all these things going on that you have to respond to in the allotted time. Like, Doc Ock ravages the Empire State Building every Tuesday at 2 p.m. and you have to be there, or else bye-bye Empire State Building.
See, I think that would be a kind of cool way to take this game. Because part of the whole idea of this game is that Spider-Man is this, like, millennial who's having trouble, like, balancing his stuff. Mm-hmm. And that would be even more, you know, it would create that feeling in the player even more vividly if you literally are kind of having to manage Spider-Man's day.
Yeah. It would be, like, it'd be a lot more complicated, I can only imagine. Like, I guess you'd have some sort of, like, morality system or, like, point system, I don't know, that, like, applies to his personal work and Spider-Man life. And then, like, the way, like, the values you have in those areas, like, impact things. But then if there's, like something big going on in Spider-Man that you don't respond to, you have to see the fallout of that, right? So it becomes very complicated in, like, a bigger, less self-contained thing, like being a superhero. Well, if that makes sense.
It would probably have to be a game that rewarded, like, replay and that was a little bit shorter, I think.
Yeah.
So, like, you'd want to... It's just a real-time game. And, you know, 2 hours in, Doc Ock goes after the Empire State Building, and 4 hours in...
Probably doesn't have to be a real-time game, necessarily.
Sure.
It could be shortened. Like, a day could be
well, not like
6
literally
hours.
real time, but, like, the clock keeps running.
Yes, yeah.
That would be wild, though, if it was real time, and, like, sometimes you had to, like, play at 3 a.m. to, like...
No, don't do that. Insomniac, no.
That would be funny from Insomniac Games.
Insomniac, please don't live up to your name, okay? Thank you.
But, you know what I mean? Like, the clock keeps running, and so, like, at certain points in your game, it's like, that's when Doc Ock attacks, that's when the Green Goblin attacks.
Yeah.
And, like, you probably need to drop everything at that point. And better hope that you've been going to work enough that you can take a sick day.
Yeah.
That'd be kind of cool. And of course, the graphics would have to be just out of this world stunning, because both of these games got some real acclaim for their graphics, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And we'd have to have some freaking quick time events. That would be the only, like, that doesn't really work with this idea, but, like...
I mean, you'd still have combat, right? Because
yeah.
you still have to go do your superhuman stuff. Like, I don't know, like, if you just made this, like, a different Spider-Man game, I don't know if you would really have to change, like, the mechanics of it very much.
That's
like,
true.
The combat system, or, like, the little... He does, like, little mini-game sort of things at work. Those could still be there, right?
Mm-hmm.
It just is now sort of... The world works differently, not necessarily Peter works differently.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. The Shenmue guy described his game as full reactive eyes entertainment, which actually kind of feels like an adequate description of this game that we're...
Full reactive what?
Eyes entertainment.
What does that mean?
I don't know. Acronym FREE.
Free. It's not free, though. You have to pay money for
yes, this game is not free. I want to be clear.
You know how much work went into this game?
So much.
so much.
The other thing that's really important that happens in real time is that when it rains, there are puddles.
Yes, of course.
Lots of them.
Big puddles. Lots of them. Too many of them. Some games.
Yeah, that's the other distinctive aspect of this game. People are like, New York doesn't have this many puddles. Only it does. Where the sidewalks come and meet the street, they do have real big puddles. That's real.
And Peter's, like, really into martial arts in this version.
Peter is already really into martial arts.
Fair, true enough.
Like, literally nothing has to change.
He has a family dojo.
Peter already had his uncle die in his arms.
That's right. That's true. You're right.
So, like, I know that when you're adapting games, you know, you have great power, and with that great power comes great responsibility. But this one is pretty cut and dried. This one's pretty easy.
It's true.
This would be an awesome game.
It would be pretty cool, yeah. Really hard to make, I think. Even if you made it shorter than Spider-Man is, it would be hard to make. But it'd be cool.
Yeah. No, it would be really hard, but I don't know.
This isn't real life game development. We're not making these. This is fantasy game development where we just think it and it exists. So
well, if we could restrict Peter to like a smaller area of Manhattan,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Then it would be a little more doable.
Yeah.
Or rather, he won't be in Manhattan, right? Because that's not where Shenmue is set. It's called Peter Parker Takes a Vacation, and he's in Japan.
Okay. There's something nice about, like, something appealing about the idea of, like, a call comes in and you're halfway across New York, though. Like, there's something to that, like, urgency. I don't know.
Exactly.
That if you made it smaller, it kind of...
That's fair. No, that's fair.
Detracts from that.
But you just make his web swinging. No, you wouldn't want to change that. The web swinging is so cool.
Yeah, it is.
So, no, it would just have to be a really big game.
Yeah.
I mean, there just have to be a lot going on, but it would have a lot of replay value, right? So even if it's only like a 15-hour game, I say only, right? That's like how long games used to be.
Only 15 hours.
But even if it's only a 15-hour game, I think that's fine.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting.
People should make this.
Spider-Man saves New Yorker town.
You're right. It is called New Yorker Town, but it's clearly a Japanese city.
You're right. It's like it's in the Big Hero 6 world.
Exactly.
Whatever New York is, as opposed to San Francisco. New York, Kashima.
New York.
It's Yokoshima, right? New Yoko town.
Nice.
New Yokoshima town.
Nice. This one would truly be the best superhero game ever made.
It's true, it would.
Honestly, can this be what Marvel Ultimate Alliance is going to be?
It can, you're right. Let's get them on the phone. Since we need to call the developers of Marvel Ultimate Alliance listeners, we should let you go for now. Madelyn, do you want to do the spiel?
Sure. Well, I've got my phone out to call the developers and get John Paquette to write this for us. Our dear relative, John Paquette, who we think is great and who could definitely use an assistant. Am I right?
Yeah, definitely.
Because it's funny when people with the same name work together.
It's hilarious. People love it.
It is. I work with another Madelyn, spelled like mine, at one of my volunteer gigs, and it's like, the emails never cease to be amusing to me. Hi, Madelyn. See you Saturday. Best, Madelyn. Anyway, while I've got my phone out to call, I'm gonna check all of our Talk This social media, because it's super great. We are on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Talk This Podcast, and we're also on YouTube at Talk This Sisters. You see all sorts of great content there. It's the best place to find out what's been posted on our website, which is www.talkthispodcast.com. Also coming up in the upcoming week, I'm going to put a bunch of my Kingdom Hearts-inspired comics, by using comics loosely, it's more like doodles, at least up on our Instagram, but probably our Facebook and Twitter too. So get excited for that. But if you want a sneak peek of those, you should check out the blog. At www.talkthispodcast.com/blog, where you can see our long-running series, Clickbait Boyfriend, where my boyfriend, who you've heard a little bit of talk about this episode, has been playing through the Kingdom Hearts series. It's about to start kicking off with the Kingdom Hearts 3 versions, so it's time to get excited, basically. And also Split Screen, which is our off-topic corner series where we are watching Boys Over Flowers and My Hero Academia and snarking about them to cover the fact that we're very interested in what's going to happen. Also, various other blogs. Emma has an X Thoughts and X Hours app that's an infrequently posting series, all sorts of other good stuff. You should all...
There was a Play This yesterday.
Oh, cool. Yeah, the playlist was great. On YouTube. I loved it.
I'm locking myself in. There was a playlist yesterday.
Yeah, there was.
It was lovely.
I loved the playlist. Definitely watch that, because boy, is it great. Also, while you're on your phone, or your computer, or anything that has a screen and connects to the internet, you should subscribe to the podcast. We are on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, Spotify, and coming very soon, Pandora. Plus pretty much wherever you can find podcasts. So check us out on there, subscribe, leave us a rating and a review, we love that stuff. And that pretty much wraps up the Talk This Internet Roundup. So Emma, what's coming out of our hat for our next full episode?
Our old game will be Tomb Raider.
Oh, okay.
We haven't talked about that yet, right?
No, we haven't.
Yeah. Cool. And our new game will be Bendy and the Ink Machine. That's been in there for a while, so I don't know if it actually is a new game now, but I think it is. It counts.
It gets grandfathered in, regardless.
Yeah.
Bendy and the Ink Machine.
Yeah.
This sounds like it's gonna go great with Tomb Raider.
It might. We'll see. You'll have to look and see.
Okay. Get excited, listeners, because you might have thought, especially if you're a new listener, you're like, wow, these two are really good at mashups.
It might be better than you're expecting.
Alright. I'm mostly just saying that we are not very good at mashups.
It's true. If you haven't noticed by now. However many episodes in we are.
Many.
But listeners, I hope that you have a very scheduled week.